I believe it is really a disgrace that in the 21st century, people in the Outer Hebrides are having to resort to visiting food banks. A further statistic that concerns me very greatly is the fact that our fuel poverty figures have risen from 60 to 70%, despite the fact that we have spent a great deal of money helping people to insulate their houses. And the third, and possibly the most shattering statistic of all, is that 12% of our children are living in poverty.
The average fuel poverty figures for Scotland are around 27%. We've just distributed a questionnaire to all houses throughout the Western Isles, and we've got the return, and we're starting to input that data, and from that data we're sort of looking at a rough figure of about 70%. So the difference between the Scottish average and the Western Isles average is massive.
It's very much a case, I think in particular with the elderly, it's very much a case of eating or heating.
There's the whole job crisis. There's hardly any jobs. I don't know what the figures are for people being on job seekers in the islands, but I certainly know a great deal of people that are on job seekers, and then there's a few that are on ESA as well. And it's a vicious circle because there are no jobs. You're being made to go to interviews. You have to apply for jobs that are completely out of your skill set, your range of qualifications. But you have to be seen to be trying to apply for these things.
Our nearest job centre is in Stornoway, which is a good 100 miles from most of the claimants. If you're in Barra, it's considerably further away, and there also is the issue of 2 ferries, one out of Barra and one out of Uist, before you ever get into Lewis and Harris, where you have to claim your benefits online. Not everyone has access to a computer. The Bureau certainly doesn't have computers that they can just let clients use. Public computers are housed in places like the libraries, and to access those computers you book slots, and the booking of a slot is generally a half an hour at a time. Unfortunately, the completing of the forms can take an hour or more if you know what you're doing.
Transport is a huge issue in cost of transport, so having a car for many people isn't a kind of option or a life choice. It's a necessity to be able to access services and to do things like go to local supermarkets. So again, that just puts pressure on people in terms of costs.
People are beginning to struggle more and more to keep food on the table and to heat their houses. And of course, with us dependent on the ferry and the food coming across in the ferry, if the weather, as we've seen over the past few weeks, the weather has stopped the ferry from sailing, well, it means that we're restricted in the amount of fresh fruit and vegetables that we have on the island.
The purpose of the Poverty Action Group is to ensure that people are made aware of these matters. It is also our job to lobby both local government and national government to ask that they take action to alleviate these situations. It is really very troubling that in the 21st century we have a situation where people are so badly in poverty.
Poverty Action Group we address the poverty issues on the islands. We have a lot of hidden poverty.
My involvement with the Poverty Action Group has been as a member of Colleen and Shear. I've also had a long association with the Citizens Advice Bureau and with Roddy Nicholson over the years. And it's a real privilege to be involved.
So what we do is we provide a free home energy visit and to all properties throughout the Western Isles. That can consist of sort of looking at their tariffs or looking at what insulation is within the property, just to make sure that we get the homes as warm as possible so that people can reduce their bills.
I think the survival guide is, I think, important in terms of signposting people to where they can get help, and there are a whole range of agencies who do provide help to people in the islands, but knowledge of these isn't always as good as it could be. So it's very much about raising profile of services, and particularly people who are in crisis, making sure that they know where they can go and where people are available and willing to help them.
I think this awareness raising day will really improve our knowledge and understanding of what poverty is and how we can really launch a new war on poverty in the islands.